Hey everybody, welcome into the Delmarva Sports Insider, your top live and local show dedicated to giving you all local sports here on the shore. I'm Sports Director Brandon Bosser.
It's yours truly, sports anchor Devin J. Martin. Welcome into the show. Tomorrow is our last day of Henlopen football for the year, and we're already indoors for some hoops, Brandon.
Yeah, exactly. Basketball is back. We'll talk about the teams we really like this year, but we do have unfinished business with some football up in Delaware.
Yep, 2 state football titles on the schedule for tomorrow. A lot of great games that we're going to get to on this weekend.
Yeah, we begin with that first ever matchup of 2 Kent County teams in a football championship game.
Yep, Smyrna and Dover, they met in the semis last year, and now everything is on the line for this year's meetup in the playoffs. Now, a few headlines for this game. First of all, Smyrna defeated Dover 46-21 in last year's playoff, and the Eagles then defeated the Senators again 46-21 earlier this season. Now, for Mike Judy, this championship game is against his alma mater. Judy played at Dover before going on to Wesley College, where Chip Knapp was a member of the coaching staff.
Yeah, a lot of connections here. So, what will Dover see this week? Heavy dose of that earthquake formation like Middletown saw last week? Or will they see Brian Wright, a traditional quarterback who has tossed 21 touchdowns this year to only 7 picks? Can Dover's offense keep up facing that top-ranked defense of Smyrna? Well, these two will kick things off at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. All right, now let's turn our attention to the 1A championship game as Laurel practicing for the final time this season today. The Bulldogs have answered every challenge this season. Today's practice was a walkthrough for challenges that Coach Joey Jones and his staff predicts St. Elizabeth will present. All season, Laurel has faced the A games of each of their opponents. So far, Laurel has come out unblemished. They've blown out every team they've faced. This season, their closest game was a 26-point win over Sussex Tech, a 2A school, to start the year.
But now they have to face the equally dominant St. Elizabeth Vikings, who Coach Jones says is very formidable. There's a lot of weapons on that Viking offense, mainly star running back Quasim Benson. They gave them a tough fight in last year's championship game, but Coach Jones says as long as the Bulldogs execute on both sides of the ball, he's confident in Laurel's chances to repeat as champions.
You know, you give yourself a chance in any game if you execute and do the things that we've done all year. And, you know, if we can show up and be who we are, you know, we'll have every opportunity to move the ball, and we have to go do that. So we've had a lot of success. We've got a lot of weapons, and some serious veterans have got a lot of starts under the belt. So we're hoping to use that one more time and come out on top. It's a group of really good kids, a group of kids that I've known for a long time, you know, even since before they were freshmen. And, you know, we've built a relationship as coach to player and within the program. And these older kids have taught the younger kids the right way. So it's been a lot of fun. I'd love to send these seniors out on undefeated back-to-back state championship because I feel like they've earned that. At least for me, they have.
Now, we wanted to reach out to a real expert on Delaware football. Who better than WDEL Sports Director Sean Green, who's been following high school football in the first state for decades.
So check out this week's Insider interview.
You saw Smyrna last week, right?
I did.
What'd you think?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Quite frankly, that's the best high school football performance I've seen since maybe Smyrna about 3 or 4 years ago. Just a dominating offensive, and you forget it in a 48-0 game. There's a 0 on the other end of that. The Smyrna defense has just been great all year long. You know, you get Robert Grinnell with a couple of interceptions in that game and just really making a difference on that side. But then offensively, the real challenge that Chip Knapp and Dover is going to have is who's on the field and where are they lining up? They line 4 different personnel groupings. They can go with a traditional quarterback. They can have someone in what we call the Wildcat. And then they have 3 different versions of the Earthquake.
Do you think that Chip is the right guy to go out there and game plan for facing offense like Smyrna?
Well, the thing to remember, he is the defensive coordinator for Dover as well. He was the offensive coordinator at Wesley, but originally came in as a defensive coach briefly before switching over to the offensive side, of course, with Mike Drass for all those years. He's got a lot to look at on film, but he's also someone that, as you mentioned, had to deal with, you know, 1 week you'd play a Mountain Union, you'd play a Mary Hardin Baylor of Texas, and they're multiple offensive formations. The challenge here is you have one team with multiple offensive formations and different personnel groupings, but you figure with 2 weeks to look at it, he's got to have something crafted up in terms of how to stop it. Salisbury fans certainly know what Wesley could do to stop that vaunted triple option over the years. And the question is, can Dover execute the game plan? And if so, maybe this becomes a closer game than I think a lot of experts think.
So what do you think Dover has to do to win? Because I think everyone has Smyrna winning by a couple of scores at least.
Well, first of all, you have to hit on the big plays. You've got to get John Parker in space one way or the other, and Nassim Kazmi has to get him the football. Big plays, and then defensively, it's just limit the damage. Get to third down against the Earthquake. Get to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Relatively a comfortable position for Smyrna, but if you can get them to, drop a pass here, maybe a bad cut here or there, maybe get a couple of punts. Not that they punt the ball a whole lot, but you want to try to shorten the game, get the big plays, and just be in the game at halftime.
We've got Laurel versus St. Elizabeth, rematch of last year. Do you see this playing out any differently than last year?
Well, one big question is going to be the health of Quasim Benson, the running back for St. Elizabeth, who ran for 2,400 yards this season. He's an absolute difference maker. I believe he's got the most rushing yards of anyone in the state of Delaware. How he goes is how St. Elizabeth goes. Now, he looked pretty good last week in the win for St. Elizabeth, but he's not 100%. And that's going to be the big challenge. If he's 70% and Laurel maybe can get a big hit on him early in the game and slow him down a little bit, then St. Elizabeth has to go to plan B and C. And when you're already trying to bridge a 2-touchdown difference from last year, that may be a bridge too far for the Vikings.
So both of those games will take place tomorrow afternoon. Always a pleasure to speak with sports director Sean Green up at WDEL. So if Dover is going to win this game, that they're going to need to get turnovers against Smyrna. That's going to happen. And maybe more importantly on offense, they're going to have to hold on to possession.
Yep.
Think about Dover.
They need every possession they can get.
Dover's offense is predicated on getting that home run. We saw that against St. George's a few different times. They need to control the line of scrimmage, control the trenches, and eat away at the clock to keep the ball out of Smyrna's hands. Now, that's going to be tough to do when you've got Smyrna's offense and just how many weapons that they actually have. Yep. Are they going to come out there with the earthquake formation like we saw last week against Middletown, or are they going to come out in the traditional quarterback with Brian Wright, who has 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions this year? He's a pretty good quarterback as well, a senior quarterback for Smyrna. It's going to be interesting to see. And if Dover is going to win this game, remember, it was 14-14 after the first quarter. Can they at least get to halftime, get to the locker room, stay in this game, maybe down by a score, and see what happens in the second half?
I think you mentioned a lot of different ways that Dover can be in this game. But again, the elephant in the room, and it's obvious, Smyrna definitely has the monster advantage over the Senators. I mean, these teams, they know each other very well. They played each other last year. They played each other in the regular season this year. And again, this rematch is where I think the Senators, they have momentum on their side. I think they're going to put up a much better fight against Smyrna than they have in the past couple times that they matched up with them. But I just think the talent gap and the talent disparity on Smyrna compared to Dover is just too large for them to overcome. And again, the Senators have had a really good postseason, a great one. I mean, they're in the state championship game, but the Eagles have just been dominant. The only loss that they had was against Middletown, who they destroyed in the semis 48-0. And I think Smyrna's just been on a mission this season, and I just don't see the Senators being able to stop them from completing their task and winning the state championship game.
Yeah, Smyrna has just gotten better and better as the season has gone along, and we saw it 50-0 win against Cape Henlopen, 48-0 win against Middletown, and a lot of people thought that Smyrna-Middletown was going to be the championship game coming into the season. A lot of people thought Smyrna-Middletown, those are the top 2 teams in the state of Delaware.
Right.
Well, we saw what Smyrna did to Middletown last week. If Dover can hold the ball, if Dover can eat away at that clock and score touchdowns and get some turnovers against Smyrna, maybe they have a chance.
But you mentioned that's a lot of different things. Hold the ball, get some turnovers, eat away at the clock. That's perfect
the formula.
game management. Yep, that is the formula. Perfect game management, everything has to kind of go right for them at that way. And it's possible. I'll bring the NFL into this. That's how the Commanders beat the Eagles a couple weeks back. They held the ball, forced a couple turnovers at the right spots, and then they didn't turn the ball over, and they got out of Lincoln with a win. So it is possible. It is possible.
It is possible. We'll see what happens. Dover has to keep it close at halftime if they're going to pull off the upset. All right, now let's move on to the 1A. I'd be surprised if the Bulldogs don't go back-to-back, to be honest, Evan.
And now when I talked to Coach Jones today at his final practice for the season, he emphasized how the Vikings today, they have a lot of firepower, the most firepower that they're going to be facing all season, as it should be. It's a championship game, and they have a lot of firepower on offense, but the Bulldogs defense has a lot of firepower. They got a lot of bite themselves. I mean, this will be the first real test that the defense has faced this season, but the defense has been amazing. They only allowed 58 points all year. That comes out to less than 6 points a game.
They've been dominant.
They have been dominant. They face other offensive teams that are pretty good, like Seaford. Seaford averaged 32 points a game this season. They held them to 12. Indian River averaged 23 points a game this season. They held them to 14. Tatnall School put up 25 points a game this season. Laurel held them to 14. So no one's been able to get, crack over 20 on them. And, Laurel's been great, obviously, on offense as well, but the defense has been the thing that hasn't really been touched on as much as the offense has been. And I think that's going to be the matchup where what can they do to slow down Quasim Benson? Because I saw Benson this year at Indian River, and he had 3 touchdowns in the first half. It was nothing for him, so he is a monster. But, again, the Bulldogs, strength on defense, the Vikings, strength on offense. Who can win that game? I think that the Bulldogs will be able to pull that off, but, again, the St. Elizabeth scoring 39 points a game. So it's good. Something has to give.
Right.
Something has to give.
Right. Going back to last year's championship game, Laurel held Benson to just 38 yards in that entire game. Now, I got to say, it was terrible conditions. It was raining all night in that game, but 38 yards for Benson. He was playing banged up in that game. 2 touchdowns for Laurel were set up by turnovers last year, and it was 28-14. And if you'll remember, St. Elizabeth did score on that first drive last year. Laurel dominated on defense the rest of the way. It makes it a lot easier when you're able to hold Benson to under 40 yards for the game.
Right.
So if Laurel's going to win this game tomorrow, and I think that they've gotten a little bit better than last year, they're going to have to hold Benson. They're going to have to hold him in check and get a couple of turnovers just like last year. But I just also want to mention one thing. Their kicker, Mike Gonzalez-Perez, has scored more points than their defense has allowed this season.
Wow.
80 points to 79. I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
No.
But
Wow.
that's an impressive stat.
Wow, that is really good. So, yeah, we're going to have a lot of great matchups tomorrow. Again, Bulldogs, I think, is going to be the team to take it home to go back-to-back, but it's going to be a lot of firepower and a lot of potential for a shootout tomorrow.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. Hopefully we bring home two trophies to the Henlopen tomorrow afternoon at University of Delaware. And you can see those highlights on 47 ABC. That'll do it for the A block. We're taking our first time out. We're talking basketball. Who impressed us in week 1? That and more when the Delmarva Sports Insider returns.
Hi, I'm Chip Knapp. I'm with Dover High School Football, and you're watching Delmarva Sports Insider.